My name is Whyte. I run track. I'm a hurdler. Also grad assistant coach with the University of Idaho track team, and I've been here quite a long time. That's hard to pinpoint, but I've always done like a lot of sports. I probably got introduced to track in junior high. It was always just the smaller goals of getting better, continuing to drop my time, and then I think those things just add up to create the experience of becoming an Olympian. Honestly, I had pretty high expectations. There were only 3 hurdlers in Canada that had the standards to go to the Olympics, and I was one of those hurdlers. I don't think it really hit me. Like when I qualified, it was just kind of like I've been on Canadian teams before. It was similar to going to World Championships for me at that time. As far as qualification, it was just do your job, make the team, go through the process of filling out paperwork and so on and so forth. And then I talked to my dad on the phone, and it was that conversation that like it hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, oh my God, I'm actually going to the Olympics. Because before it was just business as usual. And it was exciting, don't get me wrong. It was very, very exciting, but it wasn't like this huge surprise or anything at that time. But it hit me in the stomach, and I got so emotional because I was reaching a dream, reaching a level that people always like in our sport. That is the mecca. That's what you strive for, and I was so lucky and privileged, honored to be a part of that experience. It's your first Olympics. I mean, you're going up against the world's best in your event, and I had nothing to lose. I really, truly had nothing to lose. First round, I squeaked into the semifinal round by the skin of my teeth. Very, very, like, I was the last spot in. Then in the semifinal, I talked to my coach, and I was like, I don't know, what should we do? And he's like, you know what, go for it. So in all honesty, I guessed the gun. And it was the best risk I ever took in my life because I got out like perfect timing, because I guessed, perfect timing, and was able to squeak in the very last spot into the final. And I think that was probably the most exciting thing ever, was that you have nothing to lose. You put it out all out on the line, and it worked out in your favor because you're just not scared. Because it's either you make it or you don't. And I made the final. I think the biggest thing that meant a lot to me was when I did speak to my dad the night before. He normally he's just a dad, as far as like when it comes to sports, and sometimes those pep talks don't go so well, but the most meaningful pep talk he ever gave me was the night before, and he said, just remember that you belong there. You earned your spot to be on that team. You are at that level of one of the best, and make sure that you believe that you belong there. And I did, and it worked out. Let's back up 1 year before the 2008 Olympics. At that time was probably at my peak. One of my peaks, hopefully not the only peak I have. In 2007, I made the World Championship final, probably ran one of my best seasons ever. So my expectations for 2008 were high because not only did I already have Olympic experience under my belt from the previous Olympic Games, but the year before 2008, I was running phenomenally for myself, and I thought that I had a pretty good chance of making the final and possibly medaling. Then, March of 2008, through some advice, I got knee surgery. It was supposed to be simple knee surgery, but it ended up not being so simple, and my preparation before the games was not ideal. Now, talk about emotional. So in 2004, I was super emotional before and during and after. This, I just feel like I didn't have the confidence, I didn't have the preparation to be confident. And again, still had nothing to lose, but at the same time felt like I did have something to lose because of my expectations, and didn't make it out of the rounds, and I was a wreck. I was inconsolably distraught and almost like broken after that. Fast forward to 2012, now we have 6 girls, 6 world-class, very capable athletes to make the team. And for some reason, I'm good at an event that is very strong in Canada. That final was like, you could not cut the tension with a knife. You couldn't, because it was so thick. The tension, because we were the last event at Canadian national, at the trials, because we are the premier event in Canada. So I actually did go to the games, but I was an alternate. And of course, another emotional roller coaster, but I'm starting to get used to it. It's allowed me to understand that things happen, and we might have this ideal in our head of how we want things to play out, but everybody does. And it just happens to be that on one day, you have to be at your very best. Just let me learn that things happen, and it's just a part of the journey. And a lot of times, how you deal with defeat is a greater measure of who you are than how you deal with success. Honest, hard work is my philosophy, and then just always, and I think this has come more out of my defeats than it has out of my success, is that you have to take small successes and build them together. You can't just always want the ultimate. It has to be, because there's been so many times where maybe a practice isn't going very well for me, and I'll just be I will just see it as the worst thing ever. It was a complete waste of time. But I've grown to learn that small successes matter, and you have to at least try to pick out something positive, even if that is that nothing went right, because then tomorrow I can come back and say nothing went well. What can I do to change that? And I think if I can, with the athletes that I work with now or in the future, is just always, first of all, love what you do and enjoy it. That's the number one. And honest hard work, because if it's not honest, then it's just a lie, and I don't feel like it doesn't feel viscerally rewarding, because it just becomes this thing rather than an entity, like a deeper experience. I've had a pretty successful career. Like, if I were to stop tomorrow, I'd have to be maybe not completely satisfied, but happy with what track has given to me, because the track's given me so much, and it's because of just hard work and because of those successes. So yeah, if tomorrow it was like, you're done, I'd be pretty happy with, because you have to kind of step back and put it in perspective. How many people would love to have been in my shoes? And sometimes we get selfish, because once you reach that level, you're like, I'm almost there, and I could get a medal, and that would somehow complete your complete athletic journey. But again, when you step back and maybe look at your career through the eyes of somebody else who would have loved to have been where you are, you have to be happy. It's unfortunate, but I think if we look at the history of sport, say even take track and field, one of the original events, primitive, I think it's supposed to be meant as a true measure of yourself against another, and there's beauty in competition, but we've lost that. What does athletics mean now? And it is, trying to get a deal, and money and fame and recognition. But what would happen if we took that all away? Say if we took away all the sponsorships, we took away the millions of dollars. If we took all that away and it was just a competition, what would you get? I still think people would compete because naturally, like, I want to compete. I want to test myself, not all these other outside elements, against myself. But I need somebody else to be a yardstick. I have to have somebody else there, and it makes it more interesting. What I don't think student athletes understand is that they're having an experience like no other, and at the same time, they get an invaluable resource of education if they want it, but they don't. And see, now you're starting to see what that quote is talking about. We're seeing this value of athletics over something else that we still hold dear, which is education. But which one's gonna tip the scales? It's always athletics. So these guys and these men and women squander away this opportunity for something else because we value it so much. And it's because we can see it now. We see these, gods and goddesses that put themselves through hell and back to reach this level of one very small, like, it's just physical development, and there's mental also in it, but it's just one element. And I think that it's a disservice to athletes to say, like, you need the dedication to get to these levels. And I mean, you hear it all the time, like what I've sacrificed, and not me personally, but athletes in general, what they've sacrificed and gone through and missed out on. Like, and I've missed out on a lot too, because I've wanted to, because I love my sport and I want to be a part of that sport, but I'm just a part of it. And I think a lot of athletes, they put themselves above their sport. So it's not them being involved in the sport, they are the sport, because there's this attitude that has been given to these athletes, that has been pushed and thrust upon them, that they're at this level of they exist outside of this thing, and it's the complete wrong attitude, 100%. And then you become secluded and pigeonholed into one thing. Obviously, I would love to have a certain level of success to get, fame, money, attention. Like, those things are great, but if somebody said, no, if you were the best in the world, you still won't get these things, I would still do it because I love my sport. Like, I love what it gives for me, like, as far as just the internal struggles and just battling that out, and then what it gives for, like, what resources it gives me, strategies it gives me to carry on for the rest of my life. Because it's so hard to do this, I feel like if I move on into another area, be it business or education or coaching, I feel like it gives me the tools to be able to face anything, and I think if you can at least take that away from sport, then you're better off, rather than just seeing it as a way to fame and money and attention. I think it's worth it. Like, sport does give, it takes away, but it also gives. Yeah, I think just knowing that there's potential to maybe, like, I haven't reached my full, like, my maximum is a motivator. And I think it's just because I love this sport so much that, I don't know, I just can't get away. I can't get away from it. But I think it's just knowing that I have more to give. Doing it for yourself, like, I could have gone many different ways, but ultimately making it yours rather than doing it for some other reason, really truly making it yours, because if you don't, then you can't last, and it won't be fun, and it will just be something that you do without your heart. You have to do it because your heart's in it.